Daf Yomi, Tractate Bava, page 104b, top of the page, actually starting from the last words of 104a, which were Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel. And now we're on the top of 104b with the words Ein Mishalchin Ma'os B'Diyukani. One who owes a debt may not send money with another to the creditor on the basis of a figure, diokani, or a sign used in place of a signature that is associated with the creditor. The possession of this sign on the part of the other is not sufficient proof that he has been appointed as an agent. And this is the halacha, even if witnesses verifying that this is the creditor's sign are signed on it. And Rabbi Yochanan says, if there are witnesses signed on it, one may send the money with the other. The sages say, according to Shmuel, what is the rectification? In other words, what recourse is available to one who wishes to collect a debt without traveling to the debtor's location? The Gemara answers, one may act like that course of action of Rabbi Abba, who was owed money by Rav Yosef bar Chama. Rabbi Abba said to Rav Safra, when you come back from Rabbi Yosef bar Chama's locale, bring my money to me. When Rav Safra went there, Rava, Rav Yosef bar Chama's son, said to him, did Rabbi Abba write you a document stating, I have received payment so that my father will have proof that he has absolved himself of the debt? Rav Safra said to him, no. Rava responded, if so, first go to him and let him write you a document stating, I have received payment, and then my father will pay you. Ultimately, Rava said to him, even if he writes you a document stating, I have received payment, it is nothing, since perhaps by the time you arrive back here, Rabbi Abba will have died, and the money will fall before his orphans as an inheritance. And the document stating, I have received payment, that was written by Rabbi Abba, will be nothing, as the debt is no longer owed to him, but rather to his heirs. Rav Safra said to him, rather, what is the rectification? Rava replied, go, and Rabbi Abba will transfer to you the rights to the money owed to him by means of acquisition of land from him. And then you should come and write for us a document stating, I have received payment, then he will pay you. The Gemara notes, and this is like that course of action of Rav Papa, who was owed 12,000 dinars by a resident of Behozai, and he transferred his claim to the money to Rav Shmuel bar Abba by means of the acquisition of the threshold of his house. When Rav Shmuel bar Abba came from Behozai with the money in hand, Rav Papa went out as far as Tavak toward him in his excitement to receive the money. The Mishnah teaches that if the robber gave the robbery victim the principal value of the stolen item, but did not give him the additional 1/5 payment required of a robber, he is not required to pursue the robbery victim in order to return the additional 1/5 payment. The Gemara comments, apparently the additional 1/5 payment is considered monetary restitution rather than a fine. And accordingly, if the robber died, the heir of the robber must pay it to the robbery victim. And we also learned in the Mishnah that if the robber gave the robbery victim the principal and takes a false oath to him concerning the additional 1/5 payment, asserting that he had already paid it, the robber adds an additional 1/5 payment apart from the additional 1/5 payment about which he had taken a false oath. Apparently, the additional 1/5 payment is monetary restitution, as one is obligated to pay an additional 1/5 for taking a false oath only with regard to monetary restitution, not with regard to fines. And this is also taught in a Braita with regard to one who robs another and takes a false oath to him that he did not rob him and then dies. His heirs pay the principal and additional 1/5 payments to the robbery victim, but are exempt from the obligation to bring the guilt offering. The Gemara asks, but are heirs obligated to pay the additional 1/5 payment to their father, indicating that apparently the additional 1/5 payment is monetary restitution, and therefore the heirs must pay it? But one could raise a contradiction from a Braita, after having stated that one is required to add the additional 1/5 payment only for a robbery he commits himself, and not for a robbery committed by his father. The Braita states, I would still say that when does an heir not pay the additional 1/5 payment for his father's robbery? It is only when neither he nor his father took a false oath. But if he took a false oath but not his father, or if his father took a false oath but not he, or if he and his father both took false oaths, from where is the heir's exemption derived? The verse states, he shall restore the item that he robbed, and the item that he has acquired through exploitation. Leviticus 5:23. And in this case, the heir did not rob and did not exploit, since the verse states the obligation to pay the additional 1/5 payment when discussing one who robbed or exploited another, and the heir has done neither, he is exempt from payment. This Braita states that heirs are not obligated to pay the additional 1/5 payment. The Gemara answers, Rav Nachman said that this is not difficult. Here in the Mishnah and in the first Braita, they discuss a case where the robber admitted his obligation and therefore was required to pay the additional 1/5 payment, and this obligation is transferred to his heir. There, in the latter Braita, it discusses a case where he did not admit his obligation and was never required to pay the additional 1/5 payment. The Gemara rejects this answer. If the latter Braita discusses a case where he did not admit his obligation, then the halakha would be that the heir would not pay even the principal, as the obligation is not known by anyone. And if you would say that indeed it is so that he does not pay the principal, but isn't it understood from the fact that the Tana searches for a source to teach the heir's exemption from only the additional 1/5 payment, that it means to say that he does not pay, that he does pay the principal? The Gemara also proves that the heir must pay the principal from the continuation of the same Braita. And further, it is taught in that Braita, and I would still say, when does the heir pay the principal for his father's robbery? It is only when he and his father both took false oaths. But if his father took a false oath and not he, or if he took a false oath but not his father, or if neither be he nor his father took false oaths, from where is the heir's obligation to pay the principal derived? The verse states the following items: robbery and exploitation, lost item and deposit. Leviticus 5:23. And there is a derivation. There's a derivation here to derive that the heir is obligated to pay the principal in all of these cases. In all of these cases. The Gemara clarifies, and Rav Huna sat and stated this halakha, and Rabba his son said to him, was the master saying that there is a derivation, Yesh Talmud, or was the master saying that they will be paid, Yesh Talmud? Rav Huna said to him, I am saying there is a derivation, and it is from the additional expressions in the verses that I say it can be derived. It is apparent that an heir is obligated to pay the principal, and this refutes Rav Nachman's attempted resolution. Rather, what did Rav Nachman mean when he suggested that the second Braita is referring to a case where he did not admit his obligation and exempts his heir from paying the additional 1/5, but obligates him to pay the principal. The Braita is referring to a case where the father did not admit, but his son did admit, and therefore he is obligated to pay the principal. The Gemara asks, and let his son be liable to pay the additional 1/5 payment for his own false oath. The sages say, in the case of the Braita, it is where the stolen item is no longer extant, although the false oath was taken. It is not the type of obligation for which one must pay an additional 1/5 payment. The Gemara asks, if in the case of the Braita, it is where the stolen item is no longer extant, the halacha should be that the heir does not pay even the principal, as the halacha is that while heirs must return an item stolen by their father, they are not obligated to compensate the owner if the item is no longer extant. The Gemara answers no. The ruling is necessary in a case where there is guaranteed property, in other words, land, which the heirs inherited from the robber. Heirs are obligated to compensate the owner of a stolen item with inherited land, even if the stolen item itself is no longer extant. The Gemara asks, and even when there is a guaranteed property, in other words, land, what of it? After all, such a debt is legally considered a loan by oral agreement, and the creditor of a loan by oral agreement cannot collect from the heirs of the debtor, nor can he collect from those who purchased land from the debtor. Amri, the sages say in response,